Hey guys, big news. We've hit our first technical issues of the podcast. Something went wrong with the recording, and some portions of the audio are like really glitchy and choppy and weird. So we salvaged what we could, and hopefully this episode sounds alright. But yeah, that's all. Enjoy the episode. Bye. Welcome to Chats by Christ. I'm Charlie.
I'm Deshaun.
And today we have a special guest. I'd like to introduce friend of the podcast, friend of me and Desh, Joel.
Hey guys, happy to be on.
Welcome,
Thanks for
Joel.
having me.
Well, as is tradition as is now tradition in our podcast and as is tradition in our youth ministry, I'll get you to say 3 interesting things about yourself, Joel.
Well, you didn't prepare me for this one, did you?
No,
Um,
it's tradition.
yeah, fair. 3 interesting things. I work in consulting, not insurance, as one of our friends seem to think for a long time. I'm really into movie soundtracks. Love Hans Zimmer, and whether or not you believe it, I'm Batman.
Wait, should you be saying that on a podcast? Doesn't
Yeah,
that
I
give
don't
you
know.
Well,
Like,
true,
isn't the whole secret
true.
identity thing
Okay, maybe
important?
you just blur it out.
All right, yeah, no worries.
At the
I'm
Okay.
start.
Beep.
Gotham needs me.
All right, no worries.
Okay. Yep. I definitely won't forget. I promise. But anyway, as is tradition, 1, 2, 3. Hi,
Hi,
Joel.
Joel.
Wow. Now you know how the kids
Yeah.
feel.
Yeah.
Yes. You were a kid once. Did you forget?
Yeah, yonks ago.
Yes.
28 years since I had that done to me.
Yeah.
Tells you
Back
how old I am.
when
Hey.
back when dinosaurs roamed the earth. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Anyway. I guess we'll just get straight into it. Because yeah. So we're gonna keep going with our commandment series. And so today's episode, we're looking at commandment number 4. And commandment number 4 is the start of a little shift in the commandments. Up until now, the first 3 have been about God and about worship primarily. But from commandment 4 onwards, we start to look at commandments about how we deal with other people, how we deal with our neighbor. So these are the commandments that so from 4 onwards, these are the commandments that fall under Jesus's command to love one another even as he has loved us. So the 4th commandment is to honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long in the land which the Lord your God gives you. So I'll put it back onto you guys. Like, how do you guys honor your father and mother?
Oof. I don't know. I think like the child's responsibility to the parent almost, I mean, not quite, but extends like in the loving sense almost as far as the parent's responsibility to the child. Like we have responsibility to our parents to love them and to take care of them. And even in the rare occasion that maybe they are maybe not doing something particularly right, like um, you know with that duty of loving, it's like sometimes it's the child's responsibility as well. I guess that's my sort of viewpoint. Like it extends both ways.
Hmm. Yeah. Cheeky spoilers for the catechism there, but yeah, it definitely goes both ways.
Spoiling the catechism, sorry.
Yeah.
Not like it's
It's not
published online, hey.
nah, it's not like we did catechism in a year last year. No. Spoilers. But yeah, like so yeah, Dash thinks it goes both ways. What about you, Joel? You same camp, more one
Oh
side or
yeah.
the other, or
No, I think it's true. It's what Dish said is spot on. If you look at what it means to honor, it's definitely a combination of love, respect, obedience, and reverence as well. It's like a combination of love and fear.
yeah.
Yeah, in the
Yeah.
positive sense, not the negative sense.
Yeah, like yeah, exactly.
And I think gratitude kind of drives all of that.
Yeah,
Like,
gratitude's a big driver.
because like as kids, we kind of come back to making an equal return to our parents for the many benefits and just good things they've done for us. But
Mm.
we can try to, yeah, it's not to nerd out, but it's like an asymptote. We can try chase it. We're not going to get there, but we should still keep going.
Okay, for our less mathematically inclined listeners, an asymptote is basically like a line that a graph will approach but never meet. So it's like, imagine like a plane coming into land, but it never touches the runway. That's like an asymptote. That's what that looks like. Hope that
That's
helps.
probably
But- Listen, this is a show for all ages, all people. All right, I gotta account for everyone.
fair. I don't know why I'm just on this trend of testing your mathematics lately, but anyhow.
Yeah, I try to. I haven't gotten back to that second one you sent me because you sent me like the difficult one. I forgot how to do
Yeah,
all of
that
it.
second one was like, wow. Yeah.
To be honest, I didn't know when I wrote it how to do it, but I figured it out.
Nice. Okay, I'll get ChatGPT on it. It's been like 6 years since I did integration.
Yeah, legit.
Anyway, back to
Yeah.
back to our topic.
Back to
Yeah,
back to
back to it.
topic. Yes. What was top? What did we last say?
How we can never get
Gratitude.
back to repaying our parents, but we should do our best.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. In a way, like it sort of images the relationship between us and God. You know,
Mm.
we can never
Mm.
repay God. We can never repay our parents.
Yeah.
But
Mm.
we'd like to be grateful to them for what they've given us and the blessings that they've given us.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sort
True.
of like it's like a circle, if you will, we do, like our parents do for us what their parents did for them. And, that's all almost, if you think about it, that's almost one way you can sort of, pay it forward, if you will. Like, you know,
Oh yeah,
it's almost
definitely.
a form of payment, like, doing for your children what your parents did for you,
Mm,
in that sense.
Yeah.
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 Um,
I think we might
Not,
touch on that later in that rewards section, but yeah, that's definitely a reward that we
mm-mm,
can
yeah.
we
Yeah.
can hope to
yeah,
have.
for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm cynical or jaded or both.
Mm,
And like I hate to be, the devil's advocate among holy people, or chads, as you say. But like when you mentioned circles, and Joel mentioned, the difference between the good and the bad kind of fear.
mm,
Part of me does want to like, if not right now, like later on, address how this commandment would interplay with like abusive parents or abusive families.
Mm.
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
because like if your parent, because like Desh said, it goes both ways. And it's not like a vengeance thing where if your parents harm you, you're able to harm them back.
mm,
But um, there are like limits to what you have to give, particularly if that's being exploited. You know,
mhm, mhm.
Guess I'll just find a nice relevant catechism verse. They're not verses. What are they called? Paragraphs. Yeah, paragraphs.
Yeah, paragraphs.
Find one of those. Um, that'll help us dive into this a bit deeper, hopefully.
Mm,
Um,
Mm. Something you just mentioned, Charlie, reminded me. Like you
mhm.
mentioned how it's analogous to our relationship with God as well.
Yep.
And you could say that this commandment is maybe even a test of our obedience or observance of the first commandment. Like
mm,
St. John says in
Oh.
one of his letters that if you can't love the neighbor which you see, how can you love God who you do not see?
Yeah.
mhm,
I remember like my parents drilled that to me when I was young. Like, how can you love God who you haven't seen without loving your parents who are there?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. It's a relative of, as you do to the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you do unto me.
mm,
Um,
mm,
I mean, that's probably why there's so many commandments about not just our parents, but our fellow human being and our neighbor.
yeah,
yeah,
and
Not
like
that
yeah,
like, sorry, go on.
no, like yeah, what you were just about to say. I think like the Ten Commandments are kind of like divided into two different tables. Like first set of three being with regards to God, and then next
Mm.
to a neighbor. And then
Mm.
like this one's like the first among that second set.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
like I think that speaks to its importance in kind of importance um in um in our love of neighbor. Like it should start with our family and namely our parents.
yeah, yeah. Like, yeah, the family and particularly like parents and children
Mm.
have a particular pride of place
Yeah, probably.
in like in Catholicism and in Scripture.
Yeah.
And that catechism paragraph I just pulled up is 2199. And it's the first line of this paragraph is the fourth commandment is addressed expressly to children in their relationship to their father and mother, because this relationship is the most universal. And I think there's like there's another one like further down, like 2212. Is it 2212? No, different one. Can't remember which one it was, but it talks about how like the family is like the foundation of society.
Oh, yeah, I think
Mm.
I've got that one here. And I think it might be either 2207 you're looking at. The family is the original cell of social life.
Yes, yep, 2207.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's a good one. Yeah, it basically talks about how in natural society, husband and wife are called to give themselves in love. So that with that brings authority, stability, and a life of relationships within the whole family, not just between them. And that constitutes the foundations for freedom, security, and fraternity within the whole of society.
Mm. Um, I mean, the tangent a little bit like that has implications for the way society kind of is at the moment,
Mm,
because society definitely doesn't value the family
yeah.
much at all.
Yeah, there's definitely a danger to like the traditional sense of the family in our modern age.
Mm.
But,
Uh,
that's something we can, sort of aim to improve the situation in our own lives, I guess. And that again comes back to our parents as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
You- We want to be good men. We want to be good fathers,
Mm,
husbands, sons, brothers. There's stuff in here about siblings that I think I didn't take any note on, because there's a lot of stuff in this fourth commandment.
yeah.
It's about as big and dense as the first commandment, I think, as far as just how much gets included in
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Mm.
Um, this is an odd question, but we talked about, expressing gratitude, uh, showing reverence, honoring our parents. But like, what does that look like practically speaking? Because like, honoring and reverencing God involves, worship and bowing down and praying and kneeling. But I
Mm.
don't, and as much as our relationship with our parents is that
Analogy.
analogous, yeah, that word, to
Yeah. Yeah.
our
Yeah.
relationship with God, like we don't do that. We don't. I don't think we bow. Like unless you're Japanese and you bow to everyone, like you don't bow to your
Oh,
parents.
like us Sri Lankans, we kneel sometimes on like special occasions to our parents
Yeah.
and
That's true.
elders.
That's
Wait, we
definitely
do?
right.
Yeah, haven't you
That's
seen
definitely
it? Like where you kind of
No,
kneel and kind of fake kiss their feet.
mm.
no. I'm pretty removed from Sri Lankan culture. I'm not
Ah,
gonna
fair.
lie. Um, so I've got some between like,
Mm.
Mm.
um, and so in living with our parents, like we're still kind of beholden to them, if that
Mm.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Sure, for sure.
But like there is that like not yeah, there is that tension of like, we're adults. And so um, we have to take autonomy and responsibility for our own lives.
Mhm.
And that can
Mm.
sometimes uh cause friction between us and our parents.
Yeah.
Because like just being a human, like sometimes taking command of your own life involves breaking away from the, what's the word I'm looking for? protection, jurisdiction.
Yeah, the
Mm.
confines.
Like, but yeah, it's I don't want to use I've used two words in like the exact opposite ends of that spectrum because it's a loaded
Yeah,
thing I'm trying to describe. That like,
yeah.
Yeah.
because like they are just trying to look out for you, but it can be limiting. You know.
No, that's true. I think we're in that transitory stage where it's going from like just straight up obedience to more of a kind of like consideration or acknowledgement of their wishes and inclinations for us. Like a
Mm.
respectful consideration.
Yeah. Luckily, the Catechism does speak into this somewhat. So paragraph 2217 says, as long as a child lives at home with his parents, the child should obey his parents in all that they ask of him or her when it's for their good or that of the family. Uh, da, 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 da. They should obey reasonable directions of teachers and to anyone who their parents have entrusted them. Uh, there's an interesting line here. If a child is convinced in conscience that it would be morally wrong to obey a particular order, he must not do so. So this is all about like a child's child, like actual, under 18,
Hmm.
barest minimum, like child. But even in that young age, like if a child has a formed conscience and your parents are making you do something that's illegal or like immoral, then like it's not a breach of this commandment to stand against that. Because the Lord did say confusingly enough that like you can't follow him unless you hate your parents. And we all understand that to mean like you don't literally hate your parents, but in the pursuit of God and truth, you got to be mindful that your parents are just human too. I want to be really careful when I speak about this because this can become an excuse to disobey your parents for no reason. But
Yeah, no,
just
I mean you're right. Like it's to a certain degree, right?
yeah,
Like it's all about yeah, the perception of right and wrong, and if your conscience is well formed enough, as a younger child that might be a bit more difficult, but as you get older, it becomes a bit more clearer to you
hmm,
what is a good decision and what isn't, and sometimes like that clarity will come to you when it's time to speak up about something towards your parents.
hmm, yeah. I guess the unspoken caveat is
Mm,
that like what isn't mentioned here until like a lot later is the parents have an equal and opposite duty to not lead their children into immoral actions,
mm,
Mm.
right? It's like that's like the simple solution is like they shouldn't be in that situation in the first place. But people are people and flaws are flaws and whatever.
yeah,
But that's not what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about the second half of that paragraph, which talks about growing up. It says, as they grow up, children should continue to respect their parents. They should anticipate their wishes, willingly seek their advice, and accept their just admonitions. Obedience towards parents ceases with the emancipation of the children. Not so respect, which is always owed to them. This respect has its roots in the fear of God, one of the gifts of the Holy Spirit. So that's pretty much what Joel was saying, right? Like,
mm,
we don't stop respecting our parents just because we've grown up and are adults. But, you know, full and total obedience, full total unquestioning obedience will gradually like lessen as you become more adult. What's the word? Mature, formed.
yeah.
Your brain
All of
works
the above.
good.
All of the above.
um, but something I wanted to something I want to ask was the word emancipation that the Catechism uses is an odd word.
Mm,
Like, I've only ever heard emancipation being used in the context of slaves and
yeah.
like in America when the slaves were stopped being slaves, it was the Emancipation Proclamation.
Mm,
And that's a weird phrasing to use for. So like to
it
me, like
is.
it's an odd phrase to use for like your parents.
Like, the
Um,
word itself means freeing a person from another's control.
right. So yeah, the word itself is fine. It's just like
Yeah.
I guess what I want to ask is like in this context, like what actually is emancipation? What does that mean? Um, like to put a bit of like personal spin on it to maybe get a bit of context. I would like to own a home someday.
Mhm.
Um, and ideally, like I do this with my parents' support and blessing because they know how to buy a house. I do not know how to buy a house. I heard you have to have assets. I don't have assets. Uh, I bought avocado toast instead, so I wouldn't mind the help.
Mm.
Um, and so like it's easy for me to look at like moving out and having my own place as like a clear sign of emancipation. But there's a sense that like to get to there, my parents sort of have to like give the go ahead, or I could like let's not talk about the alternatives, but like that's sort of like how I see it, right? Like emancipation is something that comes from my parents. I don't know
True.
if that's
I mean,
As
that's a
in, like, you're
positive way to look at it.
given yeah.
Like
yeah,
they're
like
helping you become a man.
hmm,
Mm. Like your own man, I mean.
well, yes. Um, I guess like the hang up is probably just an impatience. Like I know friends who have their own houses, and it's like, I'd like one. When are my parents
Mm.
gonna? When am I gonna get emancipated? Mom,
Then
mom.
think of all the money you're saving from, the free food, free bills, all of that.
That's the thing, yeah. Like ideally, all of that money goes to the house fund.
True.
Um, but yeah, like yeah. So like to bring it back to the question, like, am I like on the right track? As like that's what emancipation is. Like it comes from your from your parents, and it's like at
Yeah.
their go ahead that you can become like your own actualized person, so to speak.
I think in this
Mm.
context, yeah.
Okay. Um, again, disclaimer: this is for healthy families.
Mm.
Abusive families are different. Um, all I can really say to it is like, an abusive parent by their abuse has forfeited some level of authority,
Mhm.
if not all of it, by the nature of their crimes. But and again, I'm talking
Yeah.
about like actual abuse that you have to get the authorities involved in
Yeah.
as a bare minimum. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, no child, should need to be subject to that. And
Mm.
I think that's sort of the catechism talks a little bit about, like, helping out in that element of society as well. Like, um, the fact that society has a duty to the family as well, in terms of, helping the family, um, taking care of, the sick, the homeless. Like, I feel like that all ties in to that concept of family.
Mm.
I'm not sure what I'm saying is making sense. Like, that's the way. Like, for example, one example that I can think of is like, well, what do you call it? Like housing, for example. Like,
Yeah.
like every family should, every parent should be able to give their children, the basic necessities. And, if it's a difficult situation, then that's where society should be able to help out, I think.
Mm. Yeah. Yep. That's mentioned. Yeah. I think I like
Yeah.
summarized some paragraphs and I didn't like properly note them down.
Yeah, I think that was,
Um, somewhere in like 2201 to 2213,
yeah. Yeah.
one of those. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that idea that society, like at the moment, I think there's this idea that like government or like institutions should supersede the role of the family.
Mm,
Like like childcare, like not to rag on people who need to go to work and you know they need childcare and nannies and what have you, but like the role of raising your kids first and foremost is the parent's job.
Mm.
yeah.
Um, and it's only in like necessity that your neighbor steps in, that
Mm,
your community steps in, that your government steps in.
yeah, it's
Um,
true.
I think that's like a very Cliff's Notes version of a Catholic principle called subsidiarity. somewhere in the catechism. But like that idea that like
Parents
we have
mentoring
a
their child.
yeah, like every person has a responsibility to the things they're responsible for.
Yeah.
And it's only if they cannot do that that the higher authority steps in
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do that. So like parents look after their kids.
Yeah.
And then the state looks after parents.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well,
That's
no,
true.
there's even like more levels. Like parents look after their kids. The employers are
Yeah.
supposed to give parents a fair wage. Landlords
Maternity
are meant
leave,
to,
paternity leave. I'm sure that all comes
yeah,
into it.
yeah.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
It's a very like
I mean,
pyramid shaped
Yeah.
hierarchy of responsibility.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Like.
mean, that's the whole other can of worms, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true.
Because like once upon a time, like ideally speaking, a father was able to support the entire family on just his wage, but
Mm,
that's pretty
Mm.
tough these days.
yeah. Yep. Like back in ye olde farm days, I have a feeling that like I don't know because I didn't read the history, but like it makes sense to my dumb immature brain that like the family has a farm, the
Mm.
family gets food from the farm, and then the family's wage is them selling the excess.
Yeah.
So like they
Mm.
provide for themselves from the farm, and then they get prosperity from the excess.
Yep.
Whereas like this society, not that we do the excess first, but like we're not even able to provide for ourselves in many cases.
Mm.
Mm.
You tell like again, like we live with our folks, we don't have to pay bills, we don't have to pay for groceries. But the news is always talking about the cost of living crisis. That's been a thing for the past year, 2 years since COVID
Yeah.
minimum. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like it's tough. It's a tough society out there.
I think back, like, sort of way back when, like, roles were very distinguished, and that line has become a bit more less focused nowadays, I guess. Like,
Mm.
like you were saying before,
Mm,
like the father usually would be able to provide for the whole family. So, normally the father would work, but then, that meant the mother didn't have to. So, like, that there was a role that needed filling in the home.
Mm.
yeah, yeah. Like when you say work, you mean like wage labor,
Wage labor. Yeah. Yeah.
money. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
It's like you want to go like way, way, way back. You got the hunter and the gatherer, except that the hunter and the gatherer were both the man, but it was the woman who like stayed at home and
It's the same concept, right? Yeah.
operated the camp. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and I mean, we're probably gonna get cancelled for sexism or something now, but this isn't about gender roles. This is about
Society.
roles. Yeah. Like it's not
Yeah.
like women have to do this and men have to do that. It's someone has to do this and someone has to do that. And at the moment, everyone is working. Everyone is in the jobs.
Yeah.
No one's at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's a bit of a mess for like raising kids. Um,
Yeah.
which is like we haven't really touched on the bits in the catechism about the duties of parents, but like kids have to obey their parents and parents have to uh provide for their children and actually provide like good for their children.
Yeah. Yeah. And not just like material things, like the necessities are necessary, but also like formation wise as well.
Yeah, yeah. And there's a lot of
Mm.
subtlety in formation.
Mm.
And it's difficult to form your kid properly if you can't even put food in their plates.
Exactly. Yeah. If you're
Um,
working all the time, then where are you gonna find time for anything else?
yeah, like there's a reason kids spend so much time with iPads because parents give them the iPads, but there's a reason the parents have to resort to giving the kids the iPads.
Mm.
Um, like there's
I
something
mean,
going
to
wrong
a degree. To a degree.
to a degree, right? Like I'm
Like,
being
not every parent that's giving
charitable.
their kid an iPad is like, working all the time.
Yeah, no, not every kid. Yeah, not every parent. Yeah, you're right. Some are lazy. You hate to see it. Um,
Yeah. I don't
um,
know.
but like why don't they want to look after their kids? Like society as a whole is still,
Yeah.
you know, circling back to the responsibility of society to family. which is included in this commandment,
Mm.
society is biased against children. And to open up a whole other can of worms, like society at the moment champions things like abortion and contraception
Mm.
because society as a whole doesn't care for children.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. Like you hear people mocking like people that are a part of big families, and it's just really sad, to be honest.
Heck, I used to do it.
Yeah.
I don't pretend to be a good person now, but I certainly wasn't back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's something that comes with like also like one being a part of a big family, but then two also seeing the merits of like that aspect. Like I
Yeah.
think as a child, I mean, my dad came over from a big family, so I
Hmm.
sort of saw that aspect, I guess, from a young age. But I don't know.
Mm. I mean, there's give and take, right? Like, not that
Mm.
like a big family isn't meritorious in and of itself. Just to be clear.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Um, but like, I mean, like, probably like the manliest man I know is a father of a big family. Shout out him. Am I allowed to say his name?
The guy with the 9 Webers.
The Nine Webers, yes. Yeah, we all
Weberman.
know him. Yeah.
We all
I'm,
know.
Yeah,
I'm
shout
pretty
out our
sure.
favorite superhero, Weber Man.
I'm pretty sure we've actually referred to him as the man with Webbers.
We have,
9
yeah.
Webbers before.
Yep, we definitely have.
You know who you are.
Yep, we know who you are. Yeah, you know who you are. We think you're super cool. Keep doing what you're doing. Um,
Yeah.
but like the myth of like the big family is that all these kids, they drain you and you can't have any fun with yourself. But
Mm,
like you look at this family and that's just not true.
Oh, not at all.
so true.
Like
Yeah.
Like
I mean, you guys would agree, I guess. Like we feel energized when we hang out with them.
yeah,
100%.
until it's like 2 a.m. It's like I gotta go to bed. Like they go. I don't know where they
That's
get the
so
energy
done.
from, but they get it. They have it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, like the sheer amount of kids like that hasn't taken their energy away yet. So that myth probably isn't entirely accurate. Um, not to say that like have lots of kids you'll be fine. Like everyone has different energy levels. Um,
Mm,
there's a whole other conversation about responsible family planning and what that looks like in a Catholic context.
mm,
Um, but that's a heavier discussion for another time, if at all on this podcast, because I can't do it justice. Um,
I think
but
it all
like,
comes back to what we were saying before about like the fruits, and you sort of get out of it what you put into it almost, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
in
um,
every way of thinking, like not just, providing like the physical things, but also spiritually, you know, mentally, like conscience wise, like these are all things that you need to form and help a young child form, and that is the duty of the parent.
mm, mm. I'm just trying to find
Mm,
like a quote of mine in my quote library because this is the thing that's like sticking in my head and why I'm reluctant to go all in on like the big family thing. Here it is. This is all where we've tangented completely, but I guess we'll see this through to the end. Um,
mm,
so this is from an author called Brandon McGinley, who wrote a book called The Prodigal Church. Uh, this book is about like how the Catholicism sort of declined after the 60s in America and hence the rest of the world because America has too much of a stranglehold on culture these days. But anyway, quote goes like this: when one perceives openness to life as a lifestyle choice, as an expression of one's own autonomy, or as a demonstration of virility, that's adopting the same posture toward the primacy of human independence that the culture teaches. It
mm,
might follow God's law, strictly speaking, but it does so almost by accident. So, like, this quote is why I say big families in and of themselves aren't meritorious. Because there are people who, like, make an almost suffering Olympics out of. This is a big accusation, actually. I don't know if that's true. But, like, maybe there are people out there who like have lots of kids, not for the sake of the kids, but to flex how many kids they have, if that makes sense.
Mm,
Like
yeah.
there's a sort of self-centeredness that comes with parenthood that I desperately hope to avoid in
Like it's a
my future.
competition, you mean?
Yeah, like it's sort of like I have more kids than your. Look at how many kids I have.
Mm,
That means I'm holy.
yeah.
It's not a big family thing. It's a self-centeredness thing. Um,
Yeah, I see what you mean.
it's it's the same sort of self-centeredness that I saw in a movie called The Iron Claw. It was out recently.
Mhm.
Um, that movie's about a family of wrestlers, like four brothers who all get into wrestling, but they all get into wrestling because their dad is pushing them to get into wrestling to achieve his dream of getting the heavyweight championship. And
Wow.
you and like as the movie progresses, like you see how this pursuit like ruins these kids. And by the end of it, like only one brother is left alive, um, because no, two brothers, no, one brother, yeah, one brother's left alive, um, because of various reasons. Like that pursuit just destroys the other three children. It's rough,
Full on.
but it's a good movie.
Mm.
Highly recommended. Um, Zac Efron is unrecognizable as the main character, so there you go.
Which one is he? Oh, there he is. I was, I was, I was looking at the poster. I'm just like, where?
Yeah, that
Wow.
was me at like the credits. I'm like, what? That was Zac Efron? Okay.
Oh wait, you didn't know until the end of the movie?
I didn't know. I went into the movie blind. It was like I got invited by a friend. I was like, oh yeah, I'll chill with my mate, go watch a movie. I don't care.
Oh
Mm.
wow.
And at the very end, I see it's Zac Efron. I'm like, what? Okay. But yeah, tangent aside, let me get my actual notes up because that's a good overview of the duties of parents. Um,
Mm.
we've sort of looked at the duties of kids, and we've been glossing in and out of the duties of society. Um, although we are members of society, aren't we? The three of us. What what can
I think
we
so.
do in society, like outside of our families? What can we do to make our little slice of the world more conducive to family in general? Beyond starting our own families, because that requires a lot of steps, like acquire a wife.
Supporting families wherever possible.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
that might
Mm.
be like in your society, in your parish, um, even just like extended family.
Yeah. Like it's hard for me to say that because I don't really have much ties with my extended family
Yeah, I feel you.
because
I
of
feel you.
family. Families have
Yeah.
families are imperfect and they have conflict and whatever. But you know, yeah, like it's hard. Like I don't consider that viewpoint. Like yeah, your extended family is also family, so
Mm,
be good to them. But sorry,
yeah.
yeah, I cut you off. Go on.
No, I think that was it.
I uh,
I kind of trying to remember. I had another thought.
uh,
Yeah.
in the meantime, have you got anything to add, Joel? Any ideas or?
Um, no, just along the same lines as Desh, supporting families, like young families, like new families. Something my mum always does
Mm,
is like, whenever um, the family's expecting a child or something, she would cook up a meal, take it over to them just to relieve them in that moment. Um,
Mm,
that's
but
nice.
it's
Yeah.
nice.
or
Yeah.
even like if you think back to what us boys did a couple weeks ago, just taking a certain kid to his basketball game just to help out the family manage all their different duties and whatnot. Can be as simple as that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just lending
Yeah.
a hand where we are able just to relieve their duties a
Mm,
little bit.
Mm, yeah, it's true.
yeah. Yeah. I didn't
I
even.
think this.
Sorry,
Oh,
go on.
sorry, go on. No, go on, go.
I was gonna say like I didn't even think of that as an option because like for us, this family are like our friends.
Mm,
Like it doesn't feel like an act of charity or anything. It's just like, oh yeah, we're friends. We help each other out.
yeah,
Um,
Mm.
literally. True.
but like, what were you gonna say, Desh? Before I keep going on to another
Uh,
tangent.
Mine was also a tangent.
I see.
Um, I'll just quick throw it in. Also like fighting for the family, like in this modern day and age, like whatever way you can. Um,
Mm,
like
yes.
we have like things like March for the Babies, which
Mm.
I
Yeah.
think is a
Yes.
really good thing that we have going on in Melbourne. And we know a lot of people attend that every year. And the numbers are always growing, which is good to see as well.
Mm,
Because it's a growing problem, like the lack of, you know, respect for the sanctity of life is a growing problem, I think.
mm,
Yeah.
Mm. I mean, it's not to be unexpected, I guess, because
Mm-mm.
well, Sister Lucia Fatima did say that the last battle will
Yeah,
be over marriage and family.
that's
mm,
true.
So we've been warned.
yeah.
What were you gonna say, Charlotte?
I was gonna say, sorry. I was gonna say, like, this family are like our friends, right? Um, like we came to know them through our youth ministry work. Well, like I did anyway. Um, I
Mm.
guess like a question for like other people is like usually when you think of your friends, they're usually people of your same age, same interests. They might not be like a 40-year-old couple and their kids, right? Um, that felt mean, but it's not. I'm sorry. But like you know what I mean? Like it's
I know
people
what you
Yeah,
like
mean.
yeah,
It's not
us,
a
yeah. So like
yeah.
how do you like what are like ideas or ways to make friends with people who are outside your age or interest bracket?
probably. I think the easiest way to do that is just start with like your parish church.
Yeah,
Don't just skedaddle straight
Mm,
after mass. Talk to people, get
true.
to know them, get to know their lives, things that they're
Mm,
struggling with, things that um, they could do with a bit of help,
yeah.
yeah.
and that kind of gives us an opportunity to be like, oh, hey, I can help there. I'm spitballing here, but I can come babysit your kid this day, this
Mm,
evening, so you can go to this thing or something like that.
You
yeah.
hear that? You hear that, Weatherman? Joel can babysit your kids.
If
Yeah.
he gets me a Weber, I'll do it. Just no questions asked.
Fair wage, fair
Does that
wage.
mean I become an honorary kid though?
That's a great question. I don't
Doesn't
know if
he need to
no.
doesn't he
Yeah,
need
like
to
yeah,
obtain a
like
rubber?
he has to have the Weber. Yeah,
Ah,
yeah.
true. Yeah, fair. You
He
got
needs to
me.
get a Weber for you, right? So like, yeah,
On
he
my
needs to get
behalf,
a
yeah.
Weber on your behalf. Yeah, yeah. With the
Yeah,
rest
yeah,
of
yeah.
his Webers. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
I
how it
should
works.
tell him
Yeah.
that.
Mm,
Yeah, no, I think that is the go. Like, and like maybe sticking
just
around
engage,
after
yeah.
mass is awkward, but your parish has groups, so
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
join your parish groups.
I mean, like Dish and my parents, like when we were younger, they were part of like the family group circle in our parish, and
Mm,
Mm,
that was quite helpful. As in, like they helped us out, we helped the
yeah.
various members in there. Like it was just it was a true
Yeah, it's nice.
mutual yeah exchange.
Like
mm,
someone would like move house, for example, and like, maybe they'd put like a message in the WhatsApp group chat, be like, "Is anyone free?" And people would come down and help
Yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah.
exactly. Oh, as soon as someone heard another member was sick, they'd rock up with like
Mm,
a meal prepared or something like that.
yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
yep, yep, yeah. And that all starts from like community friendship. Um,
Mm,
like the easiest, yeah, like you guys are saying, like, the easiest way to do that is to just get out there, which is, of course, isn't the easiest thing, but
just engage with society, yeah.
yeah, like yeah, get involved. It's really the best way to say it. Um,
Yeah.
okay, we've got 10 minutes, and one thing I've completely neglected is the idea of the family as domestic church.
Ooh,
Yeah. Because like we mentioned, the family is a microcosm of society and like the building block of society. Um, but the family is also uh the beginnings of religious life. It's the beginnings of spirituality
Mm.
yeah.
because like the first person you're gonna learn your faith from is your parents.
Mhm.
Um, I swear I took a note of it somewhere, but I guess I guess I didn't take it down properly. Um, It shows up in the catechism somewhere, but I don't remember where it is now.
Is it 2226 you're looking for?
Uh,
2224 to 2226?
Perhaps, yeah.
It talks about
Read it.
education in the faith by the parents.
I think that's it. Yeah. Read it out, Dash, or like read out good bits.
Yeah, so 2224 to about 22230 talks about the parents' duty to a child in terms of education of the faith.
Mhm.
So evangelizing their children, associating them from, their youngest years with the life of the church.
Yep.
Um, I really like this line. It says that a wholesome family life can foster interior dispositions that are a genuine preparation for a living faith and remain a support for it throughout one's life, which I think is really nice.
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
And I think that also ties in with like families supporting their child in whatever vocation they discern.
Yep.
Mm.
I think the
Mm.
catechism also talks about that, I think a little bit earlier on.
Mm.
Yeah. And then, yeah, so it basically goes on then to, talking about, we have school and we have that form of education, but, like forming conscience, forming like moral values and things like that. That's not really, like you can learn about them in school, but forming them is something that I think, what the catechism is trying to say is that that is, the duty of the parent to form those things.
Yeah. Yep. Like, there's a difference between following the rules and being virtuous.
Mm,
And at school, you can pretty easily get away with following the rules.
yeah.
I mean, you could get away with not following the rules half the time. Let's be real. School, as we know it, is not the best place to learn how to be virtuous. Unfortunately.
Mhm.
Um,
It's hard these days.
yes. Yeah, like it comes from like the like if you want your kid to be virtuous, like you got to teach him. Put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah. Um, was there anything else in there, Dash, or was that it?
Um, that was the main sort of gist of it.
Hmm.
Yeah. Other than that, sort of talks about when children become adults. They have the right to choose their profession and state of life. So yeah, basically,
Nah.
parents have the obligation to allow them to pursue their vocation.
Yep.
Um, yeah, and then it sort of goes on after that to talk about the family and like the kingdom, like of God and like
Yeah.
society,
Ah, right.
like
Yeah.
civil society.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. Ah, civil society. That's included in here too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because because this commandment is based around like respect to
Authority.
authority,
Yeah, that's
right? Like
true.
if your parents have
Mm.
authority over you.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
that
Yeah.
authority, that also applies to like civil authority.
Mm-mm.
You do owe respect to your teachers. You do owe respect to the state as like
Mm.
the leaders placed over you. Um,
Yeah.
render to Caesar what is Caesar's and all that.
Yeah. By
Um,
that vein, it also has like an ecclesial dimension too, like honoring the prelates of our church,
yeah, like
Mhm.
you're
honoring our priests.
yeah, they're literally called father. Like yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
um, and nuns are called mother and sister.
Mm.
Um, so like if that doesn't tell you to honor them, I don't know what would.
Mm.
Mm.
Um,
But the catechism does go into this is more in regards to like civil society, but I mean, again, it can be applied in a wider context as well. So it basically
mm,
says that citizens are obliged in conscience not to follow the directions of civil authorities when they are contrary to the demands of moral order.
correct.
Uh,
Yes.
yeah, um, which is pretty sound. Like whenever authority is not behaving in the line of moral sight, then it is not against this commandment or the what the catechism says to say no. I guess.
Yeah. Yep. Like our ultimate authority is God, right?
Yeah.
So
Mm.
if any lesser authority tries to make a claim against uh how do I phrase this? Like
There's a quote from Acts here, which is like really good. Which is we must obey God rather than man. Acts 5:29. I mean, it's pretty short, but
I mean,
get the
short and
message across.
sweet, it gets to the point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like you obey God and not the commands of man. Um, and like you obey the commands of man when they are in line with the commands of God.
Mm.
That's the Cliff's notes of it.
Yeah.
Um,
So it comes back to society again, like civil society, if you will, to
mm,
allow people to have that. First of all, to have that freedom, to make choices that they see morally fit.
mm.
But second of all, to provide them with the ability to do that, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and it's for this sort of reason uh, that the church has opinions on politics
Mm, yeah.
because politics, society, is meant to serve people,
Mm.
and the church uh, serves people, and the church is aimed
Hmm.
at the welfare of people, right?
Hmm.
Mm.
So when it comments on politics and what politics should and shouldn't do, it's because um, it's for these reasons, right? Like politics and society should, like parents have a responsibility to their kids, society has a responsibility to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and so, like, society needs to uphold these responsibilities. Otherwise, it is not doing its job.
True.
Um, and that's not a case for like that's not necessarily a case for like Pope Francis should be king of the world. Um, but for people who say like, why does the church have to comment on politics? Like this is why, right? It's because
Mm.
the church comments on humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, anything else anyone wants to add? Or do you think we've covered everything at least somewhat?
Just going through the
Mm.
summary in my catechism. I think we've pretty well-rounded discussion. Yeah, Joel, anything final to add? Anything you can think of that we missed?
I think two things.
Mm,
Like firstly, going back to our duties towards parents, I think like prayer and supplication to God on their behalf is a big
yep.
one,
Yes.
and um, I think that stretches throughout their lives and beyond.
Yeah.
Um, I was
Mm-hmm.
like looking at classic me. I was looking at the Catechism of Trent. Got to
Uh-huh.
go back to the source, hey. And it explicitly says, like, the burying the dead, burying our parents, offering suffrages on their behalf on like the anniversaries of their death, um, faithfully executing their wills. Those sort of things fall under that duty of obedience and honor to parents.
Mm.
Mm,
There's another one there. Um, the quote I'm looking at is like, we should see to it that parents do not neglect confession and the other sacraments, um, with which every Christian should receive at the approach of death. So like really safeguarding their souls and ensuring they have that passage towards beatitude, I guess.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I don't think that's much stressed these days, and it's a tough one too, I guess.
Mm.
Educate your parents in that sense, I suppose.
Yeah. Like.
Sort of challenges you to think about your parents' like
Mm, for sure.
mortality, which is
Yeah.
scary.
Mm.
Mm. But yeah, that's a duty for us. And the other thing I thought of was like among all the commandments, this one's the only one with like an explicit reward attached to it.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned that. You
Mm,
mentioned the rewards
Um,
earlier.
and I think that's important to note that not that you wouldn't get rewarded for observing the other commandments, but like the fact that this one explicitly has one, I think it's important to note.
Mm.
yeah.
So, yeah. The reward is that your days may be long in the land which the Lord your God gives you.
Mm,
Mm,
Um, yeah. So the catechism
yeah,
says like they're straight up like material prosperity is tied to this reward,
yeah,
to
but
this commandment on top of
yeah.
the spiritual fruits of that come with every commandment.
Mm. Yeah. I think St. Thomas breaks it down as in you like the rewards are grace for the present life and glory in the life to come.
Mm.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
and like the idea of a long life, it's not strictly in the temporal sense either. Um, not necessarily like that you live to be 150 or something, but it's more that like a full life. A life is full as much as it's a life of virtue.
Yeah. Yep. Cool. There you go. To sum up, um, I mean, the commandment itself sums it up quite nicely. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long in the land which the Lord gives you.
Mm.
Um, I guess on
Actually, I
that
had
note,
one final thought.
oh, go for it. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go for it. Go for it.
I think above all of this, um, the best example we have is our Lord's example.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
that one throwaway line in St. Luke's Gospel where, after the whole episode at, the finding in the temple,
Mm.
it says just one line, he was obedient unto them. Like he went home to Nazareth and he was obedient unto them. Full stop. Like,
Mm.
and that's
Yeah.
just, the hidden life of our Lord, but I think it captures so much.
Yeah. Yeah. In all things, the Lord is the best example.
Mm.
Mm.
Um, then like even now, like he still obeys his mum. That's why Mary's
Mm.
intercession is very powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, the marriage of Cana. Hey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we missed as is usual. We missed a lot, which is a shame. So I encourage all our listeners to go and do their own reading, do their own prayer on this, because yeah, we've only like scratched the surface, to be honest.
For sure.
But we are out of time. So before we go, any prayer intentions? Start with Joel.
Um, just grace for all of us and our friends to maintain in our Lenten resolutions and have a fruitful Lent and grow closer to our Lord so that we can rejoice at Easter.
Yep. Ish.
I think in keeping with today's sort of topic, we pray for the family. Uh, you know, um, beginning first and foremost, we pray for all of our families and those of our listeners. We pray, yeah, just in general for the family that God is good to them, and they, in turn, are good to God, and they through being, through living out the life of the family, they're able to serve God and find different ways to serve God, and that goes for all of society as well.
Yep.
Yeah. What about you?
As for me, I'll fall back on the old standard, the
Mm.
unfortunately old standard of praying for
Yeah.
an end to the conflicts in Ukraine, Russia, Israel, Palestine. Um, Everywhere else where there's conflict, like there's heaps of other conflicts going on that aren't
Mm.
really reported on. On the topic of families, there's that mum who's missing in Ballarat. I pray that they find her.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Um, and I ask for prayers for us, like Joel was saying, for us during Lent and for
Mm.
us in this podcast that we continue to be smart enough about it to not say anything outright wrong. That'd be great. Um,
Think we're okay so far.
so far, but prayers always, the extra help is always nice. We take
Always.
those.
Always.
So yeah, pray for us. We'll be praying for you. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one. God bless.
Thanks, guys. God bless. Thanks for joining us, Joel.
Thanks, Joel.
Thanks for having me. God bless.